My name is Gonçalo Sousa Pinto. I'm lead for practice transformation at FIP, the International Pharmaceutical Federation. Welcome to this CPD Bite. Today's CPD Bite is about how pharmacists may contribute to build vaccine confidence, especially among the adult population and specifically in relation to influenza vaccine. The learning objectives for today's video include understanding the problem of vaccine hesitancy and the spectrum of vaccine confidence and concerns, with a particular focus on influenza vaccination. Also, you may understand how vaccine concerns and hesitancy actually may impact vaccine uptake, particularly among high-risk groups. We will also address how to identify some of the most commonly expressed concerns and how to manage them. And finally, we will learn about available resources that can be used by pharmacists to address vaccine hesitancy and concerns. So, vaccine hesitancy and concerns exist on a spectrum. And as you will know, this ranges from accepting all vaccines and being an enthusiast about the protective effect of vaccines, but also on the other side of the spectrum, we have people who refuse all vaccines for a variety of reasons. We know that this is a smaller group, but they are quite visible and maybe quite influential. And in between these two ends of the spectrum, we have a heterogeneous group of some people who may accept some vaccines, but not all of them, or may have particular concerns or lack of information about some vaccines. And this is the group that we will probably need to focus more. And for this particular group in the middle, what has been called the movable middle, we need to adapt our interventions and our conversations with our patients at our pharmacies. So within this movable middle, we have three subgroups. Those people that will most likely accept vaccines, others who are uncertain, and also others who most unlikely will accept vaccines. And you see that for each of these groups, there are different types of barriers and concerns, including capability barriers, motivational barriers, and also trust barriers. So we need to address those different barriers with the different types of groups, depending on how people express their concerns or their position and views about vaccination. We also see that, for example, for the group that will definitely accept all vaccines, these can be empowered as advocates in their communities to go out and speak to their families and friends and to speak to those that may have some concerns and motivate them or to become vaccinated or to approach a healthcare professional for further information. We also know that at the other end of the spectrum, we need to limit the damage that people who are most against or refusing all vaccines can produce or in the community by discussing this with them. So, in order to address these concerns, we need to understand which individuals actually have concerns about vaccines and why they have these concerns and what the concerns might be. And we have grouped these concerns into four main groups or categories, including safety concerns, people who might be just not really sure whether vaccines are safe, either for themselves, for their children, for an older parent, for example, people who might have concerns about the efficacy of vaccines. And if they don't really trust or believe that vaccines work, why would they bother or invest time or other resources in getting vaccinated? Other people may have moral or philosophical concerns about vaccines, even ideological, and another group that might just have a lack of clear and reliable information about vaccines, which might deter them from actually taking the step of getting vaccinated. So let's look into these four groups in more detail. Starting with safety concerns, I'm just listing here a few of the commonly asked questions or concerns expressed about the vaccine safety. And we will not go into details of answering all these questions at today's CPD Byte, but we will try to address one of them. And the answers to all these questions and others can be found at the FIP toolkit on vaccine confidence, which I will share at the end of this CPD Byte. But for example, safety concerns include whether vaccines contain harmful chemicals or preservatives that might be harmful to people's health, or whether the development of specific vaccines was too fast to be tested for long-term health risks, for example, or whether vaccines containing DNA or mRNA actually might have the capacity of changing the human genome, or whether vaccines cause autism. And we know that the answers to these questions are clear, and there's sufficient evidence to provide clear responses to all these concerns. But the evidence often needs to be translated into a language that our communities and patients can understand it and be confident about the source of these information. So let's focus on the first question, for example, in relation to flu vaccines, whether they contain harmful chemicals, preservatives, and metals. And what we can inform our communities and people who have this concern is that preservatives are used when, for example, flu vaccine are packaged in multi-dose vials. And therefore, we need the preservatives to actually protect people from an infection, from a contaminated vial with bacteria or fungi, and therefore there is a need to add a preservative to the vial to prevent contamination. Also, there's a common question about thiomersal used in vaccines and other medical products, and whether that is considered safe. And the evidence that is available shows that there is no evidence of harm caused by the low doses of this preservative, thiomersal, that is used in vaccines. Another group of concerns are related to the efficacy of vaccines, whether vaccines are actually necessary if people take action to prevent disease with hygiene measures or immunity boosting supplements, for example, or whether natural immunity that is developed through actual infection is healthier or more efficacious than taking a vaccine, for example, or whether the flu vaccines have low efficacy because they are formulated by prediction every year. Or finally, whether people can who get vaccinated actually can still contract the disease that the vaccine is actually supposed to protect them against. So again, let's focus on this one question about the flu vaccine and whether it has low efficacy because it is formulated by prediction. And what you may explain to people who present with this concern is that the influenza vaccine efficacy varies seasonally every year because it needs to be matched to the vaccine strains that are circulating around the world. And therefore, the WHO, the World Health Organization, through its global influenza surveillance network, monitors the circulating virus strains globally and makes recommendations for the strains that should be used for vaccine development. The WHO publishes these recommendations in February and September, so twice a year, for the northern and the southern hemispheres, so that vaccine manufacturers can use these recommendations and develop a vaccine that matches as much as possible the circulating strains of the influenza virus. But of course, despite the match might not be 100%, but even if the match is not 100%, the vaccine will still protect people from hospitalization or the most severe forms of influenza. Another group of concerns include moral or philosophical concerns. For example, whether vaccination is compatible with one's religious or cultural beliefs, Or, for example, for people who are vegan, whether vaccines that use eggs in their development are suitable for them, or, for example, whether mandatory immunization is might be considered a breach of privacy and autonomy over one's health. So let's focus again on the flu, on the question related to the flu vaccine and the eggs involved in their production. Indeed, some vaccines need a living organism with functional cells in their development and their production process. And that's why some of the influenza vaccines use chicken eggs in their production process. So this is true, but it's also true that some types of vaccines, such as the quadrivalent cell-based influenza vaccine and the recombinant vaccine, all are egg-free. They do not use eggs in their manufacturing process. So these might be recommended to people who are strictly against taking a vaccine that has used animal products in their development. Another question, which is not related to moral or philosophical concerns, but rather related to a safety question in relation to eggs, might be an egg allergy. And that's an entirely different issue. Well, vaccines are purified in the process of manufacturing, so there's only traces of egg proteins are left in the actual in the final product. So it's unlikely that this might trigger a strong reaction, but there are a few cases of allergy to egg proteins in people who have taken those vaccines. So, in case a person has had such an allergy in the past, then other options like those that are described on the slide can be used for these individuals. And the final group of concerns that we might consider is for those individuals who just feel that they lack clear and reliable information to make a decision about vaccination. So some of the concerns that might be expressed is for example, whether it's actually necessary for older adults to get vaccinated against the flu every year, or for people who are HIV positive, might consider or might ask themselves whether it makes sense for them to get vaccinated, whether it is necessary. Or, for example, for pregnant individuals, they might wonder whether the vaccine is meant to protect themselves or the baby. So these are some of the questions we need to be prepared to respond to at the pharmacy. And let's focus on this one on the need for older adults to get vaccinated against the flu every year. So WHO actually recommends that people over the age of 65 get an annual vaccine against the seasonal influenza. This is because the human immune system becomes weaker with age in the process called immunosenescence. And this puts older adults at higher risk of developing the most severe forms of influenza, including complications, pneumonia, and hospitalizations, of course, compared to other younger individuals. And evidence tells us that 70% of influenza-related hospitalizations and 85% of influenza-related deaths actually occur in older adults over the age of 65. So also the influenza can trigger in older adults a progressive loss of autonomy and function, leading to increased use of healthcare resources and the need for home care and long-term social care. And finally, diabetes, asthma, cardiovascular diseases are also comorbidities that place older individuals at higher risk of developing serious complications from influenza, including heart attacks. So all this information and other conversation guides, evidence-based advice, or how to address common concerns and guidance for behavioral interventions and examples also of country-level campaigns and other resources are available in the FIP publication called Building Vaccine Confidence and Communicating Vaccine Value, a toolkit for pharmacists, which is available in English, Portuguese, and Spanish on the website that is the URL that is on the slide, and you can also access it via the QR code. And finally, a whole set of resources to support conversations with patients and the community, including posters and flyers that you can print and deliver to individuals about the different types of vaccines, or focusing on different risk groups and the recommendations of vaccines for each specific group, are part of this campaign published by FIP at the end of 2023, called Let's Talk About Vaccines. And all the materials are freely available at the website that you can see on the screen. So thank you very much for your attention, and we encourage you to visit the FIP microsite on vaccination and access all our resources there. Thank you.